All right, Tracy Noriega here, paying it forward to you on the ultimate online retreat, Permission to Choose You, and we are wrapping it all up with the beautiful Samantha. I know you as Sam the Psalm, so
Yep.
It's so weird to see your name
That
there.
works. I know. What's my last name again?
I know, I don't.
Everyone thinks it's Sommelier. I'm like, yeah, that works.
That's fine. Yeah, that's funny. I love it. So thank you, Sam, for joining us. This is Sam, the unsnob sommelier. And, if I have to say, it was funny. I said that in sommelier. And so what is that exactly? It's French for a wine expert.
Nailed it.
Right. But it is a very serious title. It goes through quite a bit to get one. So it is no small feat to have that long French name after your first name and last name. So congratulations on that. That's quite
Thank you.
Thanks. So I asked Sam here because in all of my figuring out what I'm going to do and looking for alternative ways of incomes and stuff, I grew up in the service industry. So I've been in waiting tables and bartending since 15 and all through into other jobs that didn't pay enough to subsidize and whatnot. And I grew up in a family of drinkers. So we have Puerto Rican, Cuban on one side, and then Irish Catholic on the other. So, everybody drinks, and fortunately it is wine too. So I thank you for coming, because wine is one of those things that us women, thank you, is part of our self-care. Let's just admit it. A lot of us have self-care as a glass of wine at the end of that busy day. And sometimes you just know what you like, and you would like to know a little bit more, but you get intimidated by all the labels and the varietals and all that stuff. And that's why I brought in Sam, is she's going to kind of like help just, relax about that stuff. This is what she does all day long with clients, and just give them a different perspective of how to look at wine. So do you want to share some of your experience and what you do to let them know?
Definitely. So whether I'm doing, an in-person tasting and right now virtual, which I'm obsessing over, I just like to break it down, kind of what you're saying, Tracy, and really just help everyone figure out what they like based on their own personal palate. We all have different, tastes, right? So not everyone is going to love the same wine. And I think the big struggle in the industry is, if it's a high quality, expensive wine and you don't like it, there's something wrong with you. And that's not the case. I can't even tell you how many blind tastings I've done, and other industry professionals, and we'll choose in the blind tasting the cheaper wine instead of the more expensive one. So I'm definitely about finding those budget friendly, affordable wines. And then of course, appreciating when I am able to try a more expensive one, right? Obviously there's reasons and quality and standards that went into it, right? So what I do during my tastings is I provide a few different tasting documents like that I used when I was studying wine. One of them is a tasting grid. So I would use this tasting grid. It looks really intimidating, but if you look at it enough, you get used to it. And I would taste, sip, drink around, 10 to 20 wines a day. Life was really hard. I would spit, okay, for months and months and months. And so that's why I tell people, if we get into the tasting and you're like, yeah, smells like a rosé, Sam, smells like a white wine, smells like a red, duh, like I hear you. Like if you're able to pick out all these components right off the bat, then you probably don't need me, right? So it took a lot of time and a lot of different wines, consistency, to be able to pick up on the stuff. So my goal in the tasting is to have you go with your gut. Sometimes the people who never, have done a tasting like this are the best. Like my husband, for example, when we go to tasting rooms and we're like trying to guess what's in the wine, he always does better than I do because I'm overthinking it and he's just going with what he smells. So I'll have my clients be like, just whatever you smell. Could be wine related, could be not. I don't care if it's fruit or non-fruit. I have people tell me it smells like memories they have, like a drive they took on the countryside. Their backyard, and all of their answers are valid, right? You can't tell someone what they smell is wrong, but we could come to a general terms. So if it smells like, your backyard, okay, what's in your backyard? They tell me a lot of flowers. Okay. So it smells floral. Bingo. There you go.
Yeah,
So you're,
yeah.
you're nailing it right on the dot. So I like to hear what they have to say right off the bat before I give anything. Because once I start giving some indicators, then we kind of mentally think we smell and taste
Right.
everything I'm saying. But that's kind of the fun part. Then you could take note. You're like, oh, Sam said Sauv Blanc, has grapefruit or lemon lime, or vegetal components. Maybe you don't pick up on one or all of those in the tasting, but next time you drink a Sauv Blanc, you might pick up on that. So that will help with not only, your taste profile develop, but then find food pairings, right? And know what you want to order at a restaurant and all of that. So I'm very big on the food side of things too. But yeah, I really just like to have a conversation about what you are genuinely feeling about the wine. And one of the biggest things I like about my tastings is I'm not the winery. I'm not the winemaker. I don't sell these wines. So it's a very open discussion. If you don't like it, we could talk about that. It's not like we're walking on eggshells to just pretend like we like it. I'm like, this is an open table. If you hate it, tell me, what you think you don't like about it. And then we can move on and figure out a different style that you'll like better. So I really like that just say whatever you want type of vibe going. Same thing with the scents in the wine. People tell me it smells like crap, smells like Sharpie, smells like cat pee. I'm like, yeah, whatever you smell, I'm here for it. And I'll be honest with it, I smell too. I'm like, honestly, it smells like poop outside. And so and that's okay. And so that's what I love so much is we're just talking freely. And that's going into, the non-stressful, being quizzed type of atmosphere, at a tasting room, feeling intimidated. I want you to feel like after work, this is fun. You're not overthinking, you're thinking about something fun, right? So if you genuinely love wine, then, it's not like you're doing homework. It's not like you're in a class. It's an experience. I definitely cater it towards being a fun, interactive experience, not like a lesson, right? I want it to be fun, interactive. We do games. I always offer, prizes and stuff. If you pick up on something that I asked, I send free bottles of wine. Sometimes I think I'm like Ellen DeGeneres, you get a wine, you get a wine. And I'm like, all right, I gotta settle down. I'm looking at my credit card. I'm like, I can't be sending out all this wine. But it happens. And especially if I'm drinking too, I get a little bit more generous as well. And then what's also great too is after we taste together, we basically become friends. I don't really know too many clients that I've had that I don't talk to after, whether they book me again or we're just talking through Instagram, or texting or email. I feel like when I talk about my business on my social medias, I really put my personality out there. So I really do target my ideal clientele, someone who is just laid back, wants to drink wine, doesn't want to overthink it, and, is ready to just have a good time. And that's what the approach that I go with. And that's what I'm trying to put that energy out into the world.
Well, you definitely do that. I mean, and I'll share with you who are watching, that's what drew me to Sam, is looking for that and looking, okay, how can, wine be made fun? Because that was a big thing for me in working service industry was, people would just get so intimidated. Well, yeah, I like wine, and then it would be, and a lot of times, yes, the wine by the glass is more than a beer, and sometimes as much as a cocktail. And they knew what they were going to get with the cocktail and the beer, so they didn't want to try the wine. And then I would be, you know what, but this wine is so good, let me give you just a sip if I could, if it was served by the glass. And, that's just it with, the experimenting of it is just to open up to the experience of wine. And that, just like beer even, not all of them are the same either. They all say, it's a Pilsner, not all Pilsners taste the same,
Exactly.
So it is about finding your little, your little palate, what are those tastes that you do like, and just being open-minded. And so for those of you that don't know, please follow her on Instagram, because she not only gives all these fun tips, but as she said, she's just herself, which is one of the things I appreciate. It's not like this total made up pretend world. I love your bloopers that you there as well. She's got a fur baby, which is like this mean cat, which
My evil kitty.
I am intimidated by your cat, and I
Same.
know it can't do anything to me through the screen. And
She
when
like
you're like,
mauled me the other
I
day.
know,
Like,
when you said, should I touch it? I was like, no, 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 don't.
I was like, that happens at least like 3 times a day. We could be having like a nice cuddly moment, and then all of a sudden, and I'm like, oh my God. Anyways.
Yeah, so you can catch that on there. She's going to have that, and her bloopers, and her husband who puts up with so much. He seems just so.
Yeah, he's definitely like put on this earth for my crazy personality self. He's my yin to my yang.
Yeah, well, and you guys have fun doing it. So you'll find also like food stuff too. I love, her spreads. I'm like, oh yeah, I love that. And the pairings. And so there's lots of ideas. So ladies, please, we're going to take this opportunity too to, show you how she does a wine tasting, because you might be saying, okay, well, that's great, but how does this actually work, Sam? I'm over in, whichever state you're in. And how are we to do that? So maybe if you want to walk the ladies through, like, well, I know I only like this kind of wine. So what's she going to have me taste, and how do we do this? And
yeah, great question. Yeah. So usually I direct people first to my website, and on the website under the wine virtual booking section, I explain, the tasting format. So that's the biggest thing I like to say is, you're not like, what do we taste? Do I have to come up with it? No, I got you. So I have, for example, a taste through France, a taste through Italy. I have porch pounders. That's my favorite. Easy drinking wines. I have all bubbly, all reds, all whites. I keep it, really easy that way, where you could just pick the format you want. All right, we're going to taste those 4 wines. The next thing is, okay, where do you want to get the wine? So I have a partnered wine shop where he creates bundles of my tasting formats, puts all 4 wines together, and then ships them to you. So he ships to most states within the US. So for my US clients, that's the most easy way to go is, all right, I just click that bundle, order it. It will arrive, within 2 weeks before my tasting. Got it. These are the wines I'm going to taste with Sam. And then I've developed, thankfully through virtual events, so many clients across the globe. I had a tasting with someone in Italy this morning. It was 6:30 their time, 9:30, I think my time. And it was pretty easy. All I do is they wanted to do a taste through New World wines, because she drinks a lot of Italian, French, Spanish wines. So I was like, awesome. Can you share with me a couple of your go-to shops in your area, preferably some that have an online inventory, so I could go curate you a list. So that's what I'll do. They'll provide me with where they're going to go locally, and I'll pick out the wines for them and make it really easy. And then, last case scenario, say, getting the wines on the fly and you can't get the specific ones I picked out for you. No worries. As long as you're getting the varietal from that region, that's good enough, right? A Napa Valley Cabernet, a French style rosé, last but not least, just having, the varietal from the region. So again, no part of it I want to be challenging. I want it just to be so easy for you to get it. And it's my business. I'm a one-woman show, so I could customize however I want. So if you're like, Sam, I really want to, someone had me pair wines with Taylor Swift songs because it was for a bachelorette. Yeah, I was like,
oh, a bachelorette party. How cute. Oh.
So I did, and we did a bubbly tasting, and Taylor Swift came out with a song that it's like champagne problems and stuff. So like we were doing like fun stuff like that. I have people who, I offer pairing guides, of course, with every tasting. Not only do I provide, the tasting grids, tasting mats, I provide a wine guide to kind of help you, when you're not tasting with me. I also do a custom pairing guide to whatever wines we're drinking. And I, have clients who are vegan. I have clients who are gluten-free, and I'll curate it to that. If you want it all Trader Joe's, I'm always, picking out snacks from there. So it really is all customizable at the end of the day. But I like that I put out there all the resources so you don't have to think, right? We all are so busy. We all just want to, make things as easy as we can, especially for something that's supposed to be fun, so I try to make that as easy as possible. And then bringing your friends and loved ones together, right? So I know it's hard, to bring people in real life together. So virtual is a little bit easier, right? You guys could all agree on a time, whether you're in different time zones or not. that works for everyone, you know, and I'm open 7 days a week. So keeps it pretty easy for bookings and whatnot. So yeah, and the tasting lasts upwards of like an hour, usually an hour. You know, sometimes we go a little bit over depending on how we get talking, because you could tell I'm a talker. But we go through 4 wines is the basics of it. We go through 4 wines together in whatever style format we're doing, and I guide you through it. We talk about pairings, why you taste what you taste, like acidity and tannins and body. Talk about alcohol levels. I teach you the basics and break it down super approachable. So when you are by yourself at a wine shop, you're not looking at the wine of the Beaujolais from France and like, what am I drinking? You know, if you did a tasting with me, you'll be like, all right, Sam says Beaujolais is the Gamay grape. So at least I know no matter what Beaujolais I pick on the shelf, it will be the same grape, Gamay. And then it's up to me to try different producers, different wines, and figure out which one I like. So I always say your only homework is drink more wine and you'll get better at it.
Yeah, and I'm going to do that little plug there. That's what, when I've had friends and family who want to know more about wine, I always suggest Trader Joe's, because they have so many wines and they are reasonably priced. So you don't have to feel that like, oh my God, I just spent, you know, and some people get a little upset. You spent $15 or $20 on something and you don't like it.
Don't like it.
Totally understand. But they have so many great ones, even $10 and under. And if you're really not sure about what you like, it's a nice, safe way to play. So sort of like how I teach that too. I say, okay, well, if you know you like Pinot Noirs, then have fun trying Pinot Noirs from all the different areas, because then they kind of change, you know, the Pinot Noir from California versus, and even within California, it changes. But then you go to France and then you go, you know, so it's like having fun that way of just going and then going a little bit out of the box.
Right. Finding the grape in the region you like and then trying from different places.
Right.
Yeah. And I have 2 Trader Joe's wine guides on my website. So 2 Trader Joe's guides filled with 40 plus wines that are my go-to favorites. So you could always start there and then reach out for more recommendations after you get to those.
Yes. So one of the things that Sam and I were talking about before we pressed record here was that, you know, not only is wine sort of like a part of our self-care and self-love, you know, and of course, like anything, moderation, but the other part is something that Sam brought up, which is totally vital point, is, you know, it's also about the coming together, you know, because when you drink wine, it really isn't meant for you just to drink alone.
I support it, but yeah, it's always nice to have some company, right? And yeah, what I was telling Tracy is, you know, the pandemic brought us even more together, because I feel like, you know, people that live across the country, you know, our friends and family who live, you know, in different states, we maybe only see once or twice a year. But when we started doing virtual events, you're like, oh, I could see them on Monday. I could see them on Tuesday. It doesn't have to be for a birthday or a holiday. And so most of my tastings, you know, I have an occasion box, you know, just so I know if I need to, like, you know, say happy birthday or anniversary or whatever. But most of the time it's just because girls' night, date night. And I love that. And usually they're not in the same place. So what I really love about it is the easiness of it, right? So if you have a friend who also has a kid, put the baby down for bed, you know, you guys hop on your tasting, you enjoy your nightly glass of wine or multiple glasses together. And then what I love is after the tasting with me, you know, that hour tasting, if you guys want to keep hanging out, I transfer over the Zoom to you so you guys could keep drinking together, because yes, what Tracy was saying, wine is meant to be shared together. And I feel like I could be drinking, you know, cheap box wine, canned wine by the pool with my friends and have the best time. And my memory will be, that was a great time, great drinks, great people. If you're drinking wine in a stuffy environment and it's a weird atmosphere and negativity, you're not really going to remember the wine. You'll just remember the experience, right? Being negative. So as much as it's finding wine that we like, it's the experience and enjoying each other's company. And I feel like even when people don't necessarily like the whole wine lineup, you know, all 4 that we taste through, they're still coming out of that. That was so fun. You know, we laughed, we drank, you know, I got to see my friends, and that's what I love. And getting, you know, those messages after saying, we were so excited to see each other. This was like so cool. We never thought that we could even do something like this. Yeah. So even when the world starts, opening up, thankfully, I'm going to continue doing these because now most of my clients are not local. Most of my clients are actually in Canada. I have a lot of Canadian clients. Wow. Across the states, all of that. So yeah, I just hope that it's something people will remember, that, it doesn't have to be your birthday. You don't got to go dress up to go do something fun for yourself. You deserve to do something for yourself any day of the week. Any day of the week is a reason to celebrate, to pop open a bottle of bubbly. I don't think we need to wait. I think we've kind of learned our lesson that life is very short, and you just don't know what's going to happen. So I'm always like, open that bottle you've been saving. Don't save it. Open it up.
Yeah, don't save it until it turns to vinegar, right? And then you have to put it in your sauce.
Yeah, exactly. And that, getting into wine aging, I always talk about all those, factors in my tastings and break it down. But, you really don't have to age a lot of wines. A lot of wines don't have to get better over time, right? They already reached their peak. So I have a lot of clients who are like, I'm saving wine for my wedding day. I was like, when was your wedding? And they'll tell me like 10 years ago. I was like, oh, dang. And then I'll be like, what were the wines? And usually they're like, oh, it was like a Sauv Blanc and a bubbly and a rosé.
Oh, no.
Those are like ones you don't want to age, let alone, where were you putting them, right? Yeah. Like in a perfect world, if you're aging wine, you have a cellar. Wine likes to be under 70 degrees, dark, cool place. In my little Phoenix apartment that goes from like 75 degrees to 80, bouncing back and forth. Wine's like, no, I don't like that. So the only wine that's safe in my apartment is the wine that's in the wine fridges. The wine that I have, my stock, my inventory that's sitting up against my bedroom wall is fair game to maybe go bad if I keep it out there too long, because it's as dark as it's going to get in that room, but I can't control the temperature and pay for 68 degrees in my apartment, right? That'll be a fortune. But yeah, I don't want to get too sidetracked into that, but I always love answering those questions and, telling people, what I recommend, right? And you could always send me a picture of a bottle that you're holding on to and be like, Sam, have you had this before? Do you know anything about this winery? And I'll give you as much knowledge as I can. And then I always direct you straight to the winery as well for the exact answer from the winemaker, because the person who made it usually knows best. So I always like to say that.
That is very true. They sat there and made sure it was, the way they wanted it to be.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, we're going to do a little wine tasting here so that all of you can experience what it is like. And of course, she's explained it, but you know what? Words are just words. And that is another reason for this whole summit, is not only for you to learn about all the speakers and their communities, but to actually go and dive into them, because just to know about them and learn a little something here isn't about it. It's about the experience, like she's said so many times. And that is it. Experience is really what teaches. Words are just kind of words, and, knowledge can sit there, but it's until you actually get to do something with it that it really becomes yours, and then you know it, right?
Yep. I'm a super visual, literal learner, so I'm all for that. So Tracy and I are drinking a rosé that we got from Trader Joe's. I believe I told you to open up the La Ferme, that one. Yes, perfect.
Yes. Here it is.
So yeah, show them the bottle. This is on my wine guide on both of them because I love it so much. So this is the ultimate porch pounder summer water that you need. All right, guys, it is so easy drinking,
and it has the very easy to get, from
all the way.
Yeah, I know, from being a waiter and having to do that whole thing with the wine.
I get anxiety. I'm like, don't watch me.
Oh my God, it's like turn around, right?
I know. I was like, but like to be proper, you have to like do it in front of them, and I'm like, oh, it's so much pressure. But yeah, all for the screw tops. Fun fact: it's doesn't mean it's less quality. It's not a thing. Doesn't matter. I hope screw tops continue to grow and come, from the old world countries. Hopefully, we'll see. But we're gonna go ahead and pour our wine. So we always go from our lightest wine to our heaviest. Or if we have a bubbly, we would start with that, then go into our whites, rosés, and reds. So we're just doing a mini little hybrid tasting of our rosé. So if we did have our grids in front of you, that is what we would be taking notes on, following along with is the big takeaway. So you have something tangible, right, to go back with and remember everything we talked about, because I know it goes fast and it's a lot of information. Oh, yeah. So one of the first things I tell my tasters to do is take a sip of your wine. Don't wait for my cue. Take a big cheers with whoever we're drinking with and dive in. I know when I'm attending tastings for work or whatever, I'm just in the back like chugging my wine, like, yeah, good points, good knowledge, but I'm over here drinking. And then I know people are just like swirling it nonstop, and I'm just like, I just want to drink.
Yes.
So that's my philosophy, is like, we just got off work. It's Wednesday night. Drink your wine. You've been waiting for this all day. Don't wait for my cue. I'm going to be talking, so don't mind me, right? I'm not going to be chugging my wine, but you guys better be, or I'll feel awkward. So always say that first. And then I talk about, why we do what we do. So the first thing in a tasting, we look at the sight. So people look at the brightness and the color. So usually it's not a big deal to do unless you're like blind tasting. But the reason I have people learn about it is to make sure nothing's wrong with the wine. So something that could be funky going on with that, grocery store rosé would be cloudiness. It wouldn't be murky. It wouldn't be cloudy. We want it to be clear and bright. As far as it being like star bright to brilliant, that's like an option on my grid. I'm just like, don't overthink it. If it's the most beautiful wine you've ever seen, you could circle brilliant, but as long as it's not cloudy, we're good to go. And then the color helps us understand, what varietals we're getting into. Maybe if it's oaked, unoaked, that could tell a lot. The age of a wine, red wine, for example, gets lighter over time as it ages. White wine gets darker. So that could tell us a lot before we even dive in. Rosé, we got to keep it easy. It's just rosé. It's summer water. Usually the colors can vary, right? The one that we have is more of like a pale, like salmon, kind of like a light orangey color, right?
Yeah, I was going to say I've had this one before. Of course, they're all different vintages, different years. Yeah. But this is like the lightest I've ever seen this one. Actually, I was like, whoa, that is hella light.
Depending, it could be the same wine, right? And the different years could be different styles, different tastes because of the terroir, the climate, the soil. And another big cool thing that I was actually just talking about with, I did an all rosé tasting before this. We were talking about the color of rosé. It does not depend on the grape varietal, which is a big misconception, right? When we see rosé of Malbec, we're like, oh, it has to be dark. It can't be really light. No, I've had rosés of Malbec, Syrah, Sangiovese, Mourvedre, which are big grapes that are as light as this. So what gives it the color is how long they kept the skins on, the tannins, the skin contact. So for a wine this light, whatever grapes they used, assuming, coming out of this area, it was probably Cabernet Sauv, Syrah, Mourvedre, Grenache, they just dipped them, a light little skin bath, then removed them, crushed and fermented. So that's what contributes to the color of the rosé, the length of time they kept the skins on. So less time, lighter, more time, a little bit darker. The beauty of French rosé too, is I tell people it's not a fruit bomb. I think a big thing that happened, I just think back in my college years, pink wine was the sweet stuff. Pink wine was the sweet stuff. We didn't.
Let's get that straight. That's white zin, okay? Yeah. And it does not mean that everything that is pink tastes like that.
Exactly. And I thought I was like so fancy. I'd go into my box wine in my fridge on a Monday and get my like pink Franzia, and be like, I'm having a nightcap. But yeah, that was what really made a lot of people in the US with those box wines think that it was always sweet. And in the meantime, Provence, France, has been making these dry, more earthy, vegetal style rosés for years and years and years and years. So I always say, if you ever, had a bad experience with a rosé, you got to go straight to the French aisle, right? And really, most wines I see at TJ's, Total Wine, all of that, are coming out of Provence, right? All these celebrities like Snoop Dogg and Post Malone and Angelina Jolie are making rosé out of France for a reason. That's where, the magic's happening. So anyways, we look at the color, we're all looking at that stuff, making sure it's good to go. Then we go for the nose, right? So we get into the swirling part. So I always tell people, like, we swirl to like look like we know what we're doing at a winery, but it's also releasing aromas, bringing the oxygens out. So I always tell people, like, just a little swirl. We don't got to go crazy. And basically, this is where, does it smell like a wine? Does it smell bad? Does it smell good? And I break it down for you guys, and I give you the opportunity to tell me what you smell. So Tracy, do you smell anything particular that you want to share?
It kind of smelled like when you buy strawberries and you get the strawberries that aren't completely red,
Yeah,
You
like
know?
a part, yeah,
Yeah.
underripe. And Tracy nailed it. So without even overthinking it, there's literally a term in the
Mhm.
wine grid called underripe, right? So you would say
Mhm.
underripe berries. So red fruit is really common in rosé, strawberries, currants, cranberries. It smells tart, exactly
Mhm.
right. Very zesty, very tart. You know, if it smelled more ripe, more juicy, right, that could anticipate maybe a different profile on the palate. Something I notice on not just this rosé, but a lot of French rosés is they're not, overly fruity. It's more subtle.
Mhm.
Sometimes I just had a Spade and Sparrows California rosé. I get watermelon, I get ripe strawberries, juicy, this one's a little bit more subtle. So I like to bring in those non-fruit components, which get hard because I'm like, all right, now we're getting something non-fruit related inside of a grape. But
Mhm.
really, you tune into your senses, going into that visual,
Mhm.
literal learning that I did. I'd go outside, I would like smell flowers. I would lick rocks and leaves and plants. I did swear, I'm not kidding, because when people told me they got floral notes or damp forest flora, I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would lick some forest flora because I'm like, I'm not gonna not pass this test.
Right.
So, you guys don't have to go do that. But my point of it is it can be quite literal. It can smell like those things. Are we literally putting dirt in the wine? No.
Yeah.
But a lot of that earth-driven quality, earthiness is the polite way to say it. I just say dirt qualities,
Yeah.
is coming from the skins of the wine grape. So usually we get those dirt-driven, earthy, funky profiles in our reds, right? So technically there is skin contact on this, but
Mhm.
rosé, the beauty of it is we're not getting all that grit, all that earth. So tannins is that, sticky feeling
Yeah.
in our cheeks, on our tongue. Yeah, rosé shouldn't do that to us.
Makes your mouth water, and you're just
Yep, exactly. So when you take your next sip, Tracy, speaking of mouth watering, so I talk a lot about acidity in rosés. So acidity is that mouth watering, salivating component. It could even be tart to puckering. So sometimes a wine could be really high acid. Maybe you don't like that, right? Doesn't mean it's a bad wine, but you probably needed to pair it with food.
food.
So
Yeah.
high acid rosés and whites really go well with like cheeses, for example.
Brie.
What was that?
I'm like brie.
Yeah, brie is
It's
amazing.
nice and creamy, and it has all that. Yeah, so that it cuts
Yeah.
through it.
I always say, like, when in doubt, cheese, chips. I have a whole chip and
Oh,
wine pairing guide, something salty. There's
yes.
there's organic and inorganic stuff going on the wine. So organic earth, again, is those dirt driven terms. That's going to be in our red wine, right? So I don't want us to worry about that so much with the rosé. The inorganic earth is soil type. So as much as like being a som is drinking a lot of wine, there's a small percentage of geeking out over dirt and soil and terroir and climate and all of that. And you don't know it just by, drinking your wine, looking at the bottle. You know it by visiting the winery, looking up geography, stuff like that. But I'm here to help you with that. So usually in Provence, where we make a lot of our rosé, there's a lot of minerals, which is crushed up seashells, saltiness. So I loved how literal that was. I'm like, that is why my wine could be salty, is from crushed up seashells. Love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, if it's okay if your wine doesn't taste salty, I don't want that to overpower anything, but it's nice to note minerality to remember for those food pairings. This
Yeah,
does have
like I'm thinking this would be really nice with some oysters, like
yeah.
some,
Oh
some
God.
buttery oysters.
Being on the beach, eating
Mhm.
some oysters, a bottle of rosé. Like I literally, that sounds like heaven right now.
Yeah,
Meanwhile,
yeah.
it's raining
Well,
where me and Tracy are.
I know, yeah, it's kind of weird, but the other thing I like with rosés, because like you just said, that is I think of rosés as a picnic wine. It's like
Yeah,
I think of it as
totally.
the best picnic wine because it'll go, sort of that the bisexual of wines, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's versatile. Totally. I
Right.
love that. I love that.
And so you could do the cold cuts, which, again, I'm thinking Trader Joe's, the all the different little, they have that Italian one and then the Spanish one where it
Yeah.
has all the three different,
Oh, I
little
love that one.
prosciutto,
The
the
trio.
jamon, right? And then you get your little cheeses and your crackers. And then there you go. You don't even need a wine key for this. So you just
Exactly. And then I always tell people, realistically, am I being like extravagant after work and having shucked oysters, with my rosé? No, ideally I would love that. But I'm like plopping on the couch with my Trader Joe's cheese,
yeah.
maybe some charcuterie, like you mentioned. Yes. And that's where I really love that, even though it's not a heavy red wine, it can go with meat. This
Oh,
can
yeah.
go with a burger if we wanted it
Fish.
to.
Nice salmon.
Yeah, super versatile. I always say, you know, bubbly when in doubt, bubbles, and then like a French style rosé have on hand. They're going to be your best friend with an oyster and then your best friend with a steak. You know, they can handle both. And obviously there's more specific, you know, examples of what rosé goes with and going into the fish, right? I like sushi personally. I have a whole Instagram reel of my favorite like rosé and sushi pairings. It's like one of my favorites. But this would be perfect. Spicy food, you know, spicy tacos, like, oh my God, so good with that. You know, spicy Thai food, you know, it doesn't have to be a really light meal. So again, versatility. And I'm always here to offer those pairing suggestions. And then something I like to look at too, you know, if we were doing especially the porch pounder tasting, is that alcohol level. So you could check the legs on the wine. So legs, stains, tears, droplets, there's so many names in the wine world for literally the same meaning, but I'm just going to go with the legs. The slower they go down can indicate more alcohol. The quicker they go down can indicate less alcohol, right? Less sugar sticking to the glass. I would be shocked if this wine was high alcohol. What does the percentage say on it?
Yeah, I'm looking. Do you want to give a guess before I reveal?
I'm going to guess around 12, 8 to 13.
Bing, 13.
Perfect. 12, 8 to 13. So 13 is pretty right on the dot, a good sweet spot. So low alcohol technically is probably 12.5 and lower. 13 is a sweet medium minus, and then we could get up to like 13.5, 6, 7, 8. So when we go to 14, we're hitting the high zones. Okay.
Yeah, when we get into those big zins and stuff, right? Those
people are like, why do I feel more hungover from the zin than this rosé? I'm like, well, you drink a bottle of zin that was 14.5. Then the day before you drink a bottle of rosé that was like 12. So yeah, the zin's gonna get you. So I don't want anyone to obsess over the percentage, but typically a bigger wine, red wine, you know, has more skin contact, more fermentation, like Cabernet and Zin needs more sunlight, which increases alcohol. So it all kind of makes sense. So at the end of the day, check that percentage, pick your poison, see what you're getting into.
And, you know, I'm going to say this like I would when I waited tables and worked in the, you need to eat. So a little, you know, wine tasting etiquette here is, please eat before you go, because they don't serve food there a lot of times. Maybe you're lucky if you get a breadstick.
Oh, it's so funny. So, I literally say the same thing in like Sonoma, Napa. It's like, yeah, it's like, you know, you're gonna have to pay for like an expensive steak, but in Italy, here's all your fresh cheeses and meats.
Well, you know, and it's so funny you say that. I lived in Italy for like 3 years, where I learned how you could just go to you know, you have the little grocery mart, the local vegetable place. That's where you get your vegetables. It's like literally like a little, you know, they pull up the, like almost like a garage door, right? And you go inside and all of these vegetables are, and it would be just wine, and it would have just a brown paper, you know, paper bag kind of label and handwritten on it, and sometimes the big bags. And, you know, I was working at that time, I was working as a teacher. I was teaching English as a foreign language in a language institute. And this is, you know, and this is totally dating me, but this is before the euro, and I was earning lira, which has a lot of zeros behind it. So, you know, you're earning millions of lira, but when you do the exchange, it's not much.
I love that.
And I would go, I could get like a big like jug for, you know, 3,000 lira.
Wasn't it wild?
Yeah, it was, you know, like, and that back in the day was like $2, right? Because it was like 1,500 lira was about $1, you know.
Those were the days.
Yeah, back then, you know, and you'd sit there and doing all this math and stuff, but it was so good. I mean, it was like wine fresh off of, I'd ask them, where did this come from? It's like, oh, that's, yeah, it's where we grow all our vegetables, you know, be just outside of Rome. And it was like the best. I was like, oh my God.
Juice. Yeah, vineyard to bottle, I call it. And I tell people, hey, you know, I love grocery store wines. I'm always going to make, you know, those some go-tos. But if you're having some issues with the wine, if it's affecting you weird, giving you some type of reaction that you're not, you know, sitting well with, I always say, all right, let's go straight to Europe. Let's drink more Italy, Spanish, and French wines. Typically, they're more regulated over there, right? There's less room for additives. And I hate to say it, but there's words we don't even pronounce that we can't even say that are in some of our favorite, US wines. I don't want to put that on every winery does that. Of course not. But in Europe, it's very minimal that would happen. Same thing with alcohol levels. They technically can't get past certain alcohol levels depending on what region they're in. Napa, I could have like a 16% cab, no problem, right? So high. So yeah, it's a good balance to be, exploring those old world countries. I call them the OG regions that blazed the trail and started it all, and just have this massive appreciation for them, and then still, balance it out with our new world wines. And it just makes your wine options endless when you learn about, Bordeaux, okay? You learn about Burgundies, you learn about Italian wines, and what grapes grow in what region, and then you're not scared when you look at a wine list. And yeah, I help you guys with all of that, and it might take a few tastings, but they're fun. Hopefully,
and that's why she gives you all the homework, right? She gives you those guides to go and do your own research.
Exactly. So this one, you guys, like rosé, that's why we call it summer water. We want to drink it outside, put a straw in it. It's low alcohol, it's a porch pounder. And if you have food to pair it with, even better. But this one is delicious on its own. I think you agree too, but I always provide, like Tracy was saying, everything makes wine better with food, right? So a snack guide, a food pairing guide, having at least some cheeses, some bread, in that way, if you don't like the wine, you could balance it out with a good food pairing and then at least make the most out of the experience.
Well, the other thing that a lot of people don't realize, and like I've had fun with people who are getting into wine, and like how you were saying, Chris, your husband, who wasn't really into wine, or Ruben, my man, he wasn't. He was like, oh, I just like Pinot Grigio, and that's about it. But he would learn that he liked Pinot Noir, and I finally got him into reds. But the one thing that a lot of people don't realize is you can taste this wine, and I think that's the good thing that Sam does her tastings with too, is to have food. It tastes one way by itself. It will taste another way when you eat it with something else. So you eat it with a cheese, it totally, and then you eat the cheese, you let it like get in your your taste buds and everything, and then you drink it, it's a different wine. You eat another cheese, it's a different wine. You eat a piece of meat, a piece of salami, now it's a different wine. So it's like not ever really judging it on the very first taste, because there may be something else you have it with, and it just like comes alive in a different way.
I always recommend, have all your food out during your tasting, but humor me and just try the wine before you taste the food first. So we at least can see if we like it by itself. And then it could go, when we try it with food, a beautiful match, or it could be horrible. Like I did this not even that long ago, and I'm a Somm, okay, guys, and I mess up. I had a really heavy Cabernet Sauv, just one that I love to drink on my couch watching Netflix. Ordered like a poke bowl, my favorite takeout. And I'm like just drinking, eating, and then all of a sudden, like, why does my mouth taste like metal and like blood? And I was like, oh shoot, like I'm literally eating like spicy tuna, like sashimi with heavy Cab Sauv. So that's horrible example. Well, a good example, horrible, taste. Experience, but I like to tell people that because I get so many people who say they hate a wine, and I'm always curious on like, what were you eating with it? What weren't you eating with that could have ruined it, right? Like I was saying, I'm fine drinking, boxed wine out with my friends at the pool. I would probably hate a really heavy Chianti by the pool, even if it was like really good quality. But if I was inside in air with conditioning and pizza, I'd be like, oh, this is beautiful. So, that experience and how you feel, physically can affect your taste buds as well.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, is for me, temperature is a great thing. So now living here in Arizona, and it's hot more often than it's not. It's like, once it starts cooling off, I'm like, just all right, it's reds for me, because once it gets past 90, I don't want a red. I don't even want a red inside the house unless and it even is kind of hard. It's like the barbecue, and then try to bring it inside where it's AC, but it's still hot, and I don't want that big of a red. So it may be a lighter red. It may be more of a Malbec, or
We're pretty
some kind of
seasonal
blend. Yeah.
drinkers
I
here.
love the Rhones. I mean, for me,
Yeah.
I am, and that's what you find out too when you experiment with the wines is, are you like a single varietal? Do you like just cab or do you like the mix, And like for me, it's like, yeah, I am definitely more of a mixed varietal and loving like the Rhones and stuff like that because there's just all the different ones in there versus just one. So.
I agree. I agree. So, I mean, I hope this inspired you guys to just want to drink more wine, got you thirsty. And yeah, I would love to taste with you guys.
Okay, so yes, in fact, let's like wrap this up. And Sam has offered a beautiful discount that you'll find below. It is going to be, do you want to share with them what it is?
Yeah. Should I type it or just say it?
Oh, no, because you know what? You've sent it to me. It'll be down
perfect.
below when I do it. Yeah.
Perfect. So I keep it easy. My email is sam@samanthasommelier.com. My website is samanthasommelier.com. And my Instagram is Samantha Sommelier. So SOMMELI.
And we'll have all those down below for you guys. But she's going to share a 15% discount for you to book a tasting with her. That's going to be her gift. And yeah, and so please look at her site because as she said, she's got all those Trader Joe guides and whatnot. And maybe if you feel a little still intimidated about contacting her, you can do a little, I guess, homework beforehand and say,
so never feel intimidated. If you got anything out of this, like you guys, I say random weird things all the time. I've heard it all, so don't be scared.
Yeah. So go ahead and have some fun and have a girls' night out. Have, as she said, just because you can, and you don't have to worry about the commute, and you don't have to worry about where you're going to hold it because you're just at home and you can be in your PJs. So
yes, I can't wait to taste with you. Thank you so much, Tracy.
Thank you, Samantha, and everyone. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this, and cheers. Bye. Stay happy, healthy, positive, and enjoy the rest of your never before lived day. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right.